Today I'm going to show you how to repack or re-grease a 240SX wheel bearing. If you're racing, drifting, or tracking your car, this is a good idea to have a grease in there that can handle the extra heat. But if you're just driving your car on the street, this really isn't necessary. So first I always like to start with a quality wheel bearing. So an SKF, NSK, Timken, those should all be good quality wheel bearings, not the Chinese ones that'll come with no brand on them. Now this first step for me is the hardest part. You can either use a screwdriver or a socket extension to put it into the wheel bearing and pop loose the bearing race. The hard part is you have to get the outer part supported while not blocking the inner part. I did see a trick online where you can use a couple of washers and pop them in between the races, but I have not tried that trick. So if you're using the screwdriver or an extension, then just put it at an angle in there, get it wedged in between the two races, give it a good firm whack with the hammer, and after a few attempts should get it to pop out. You can see the actual bearing cage and the ball bearings came out, and there's kind of some of that pale clear or yellowish looking grease in there. Flip it over, get the other race knocked out of there, and now you can see that there is a seal in addition to the ball bearing. So I chose to use a socket to try and drive the whole assembly out together, and then it's time for cleanup. So start off putting the outer shell into some solvent, just a solvent brush and solvent. You could use kind of any other parts cleaner for this, just something that can cut through the grease. I sped up this next part just so it's not quite so boring, but yeah, just go through, clean up each piece, and with the bearing cage, you can actually push on the bearings towards the outside, and they'll pop out of the cage. And then just go through, clean those up, and get them ready for reassembly and greasing. If you take your grease of choice, in my case I'm using a Paragon 3000 grease, roughly the same properties as the Redline CV2, a nice high temperature grease, and I had just lost my Redline grease, so that's the only reason I'm using this particular one. It's what I had on hand. But you just put some grease in the palm of your hand, take one of the bearings, roll it into the grease, and then pop it into the bearing cage. Just go through and repeat that for all the rest of the ball bearings. Now if you notice when I'm putting this on there, I'm just putting kind of a layer of grease on it. I'm not trying to pack the thing entirely full of grease. So I typically do kind of a layer on each one as I pop it in there, and then just put a little extra on top of it. You need a little bit of air in there. You don't want it to be completely full. For the outer race, make sure that every surface that gets touched in here gets a little bit of grease on it. So add the grease in there, pop in the bearing cage, and they pop in fairly easily here. So you have to get the cage in there. Next up, put some grease on the inner race, and then the inner race needs to pop in, and it's a little bit more difficult to pop in there. You can either use your hand or potentially put a board on it and kind of smack that in, but in this case I was able to get it to pop in with my hand. Next up, you need to get the seal in there. So put the seal in there, and I just used a large socket to tap it in. Again, something you could just find anything that fits a similar size of the seal. Now we need to get the old bearing out of the hub. So you can either use needle nose pliers like I'm using here, or use some spring clip pliers. And then you squeeze the ends of the clip together, use a screwdriver to help walk it out of the groove. Now the bearing is free to be pressed out. It is ready for the new bearing. Press that one in there all the way, and then put the spring clip in there. So if this has been helpful to you, let me know, and we'll see you next time.